So I'll speak to existential analysis again, just because that's the specialty. But we have 4 pillars or 4 fundamental motivations. And the first fundamental motivation is like, I am here, so you exist, but can I exist? And that's like a really intense question. It's like, yes, you're physically here, but do you actually have the safety, the space, the protection to genuinely exist in this world? Because a lot of people are alive, but they're not existing. And I think that that's an important distinction. And then the second, and obviously this is years of theory in just that one pillar, but I will just give you the spark notes. Then the second one is like, I'm here, but do I like it? This is like values, relationships, connections. Do I like my life? This is an important question. The third one is, can I be myself? That's the identity piece, the authenticity piece, the support piece. That's really interesting. And then the fourth one, I find that one interesting. But the fourth one is, what is my meaning in life, right? And so we look at ability to exist, the likeness of existing, the identity, and then the meaning.
And are they sequential? Like, do you go through them in that fashion, or are you exploring them sort of at the same time?
I wouldn't say that they're linear. I think it depends what a client comes in with. So we kind of have, some shortcuts when it's like, if you come with this kind of problem, most likely this pillar is weak, but chances of only one pillar being weak are very small. So oftentimes we're working with all 4, but it just depends, like what you're coming in with is what we would focus on.
Say more about the first one, this notion of I'm here, but I think you said, am I existing? Like, am I existing in the way that I want, that I desire? I'd just love for you to unpack that, because I think that that's something that I can see in a lot of people's lives as being very common.
Yeah. So for example, if I went to a therapist after my panic attack, that's where I would be sitting. That's like, I'm alive, but can I actually exist in the space that I have co-created with the world? And the answer was absolutely not. And so I didn't have enough safety, not just in the world, but I didn't have enough inner safety, for example, to not feel anxious about the way that I was existing. And anxiety is a common symptom of this pillar being weak. And so I think it's realizing that you cannot self-express, that you cannot grow, that you cannot connect, that you cannot have your basic needs met in the context that you're in. And so that's an interesting sort of realization to come to.
And what was the third one that you found very interesting?
That I like?
What was that one?
It's the authenticity. It's like, do I have permission to be myself is one of the questions. And that's an interesting question. You're asking yourself and you're asking others of like, the people around me, are they giving me permission to be myself? And am I giving myself permission to actually be my authentic self? And that's an interesting dynamic to try to navigate. And authenticity, I think, is so important for our mental health and our well-being, whatever word we want to be using. So I love that has its own pillar. And obviously, as someone who studies the self and self-loss, that's where I would find, a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah. I think we're going to go down that path quite a bit, right? Like this notion, I think it's become it's a very modern question, right? Like, how do I live authentically and how do I be myself? Yeah. And Kierkegaard had this wonderful quote where he said, anxiety is the dizziness of freedom.
Yes,
and that
such
always,
a good quote.
Oh, it's like... It's like whimsical, but also just fucking brutal. You're like
savage
because so many of us are like, we're seeking this freedom. I want freedom. I want freedom. I want freedom to be myself. I want freedom to live how I want to live. But there is this sort of dizzying quality that can show up within that expression of freedom, because oftentimes to find our way there is to go through the sort of forest of not knowing. Of the unknown, of just like, well, shit, if I get to express who I am, then the immediate question is, who am I? And what do I want? And what do I desire? And for a lot of people, I think that place, that psychological place is incredibly uncomfortable.